In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a diesel purge on your Volkswagen TDI engine. First, remove the engine cover. It just pulls right off. On this particular engine, I already removed this clamp here, and I'm just going to pull that off. It makes the fuel lines a little bit easier to move. Then, release these hose clamps. They're spring-loaded, so just clamp them with some pliers and move them to the side. Now these fuel lines tend to get stuck, so just try to twist them before pulling them back in order to break the seal. Stuff some paper towels or other rags underneath to catch any fuel drips. Then release the fuel lines. Now, because the fuel pump is always pumping fuel in through these lines, you want to connect these two lines with a male connector. You could remove the fuel lines here, but this spring clamp is a little bit harder to remove. And then set that aside. If you don't plug these, then you're going to have fuel squirting out of these when the fuel pump is running. Then attach a feed and return line to your fuel rail. Now, I've put a inline fuel filter. This is just something I picked up at the auto parts store on the return line to the engine, because I don't want anything that might get flushed loose getting its way back to the engine. If you decide to add an inline fuel filter, make sure that the arrow on the fuel filter can is going in the direction of fuel flow. So look for the arrow. This is the return line. So I'm going to put the return line all the way to the bottom of a holding jar and put the return line from the engine just so that it empties out into this. I'm using a glass jar because the fuel lines will get kind of warm, so I'm not going to use a plastic in case it melts. Then take your diesel purge, fill this up, and start the engine. After the engine is started, make sure that this jar stays full, or at least that this return line to the engine stays immersed in fuel, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time starting the engine. So fill up the bottle with the diesel purge. And after you start the engine, just make sure that this stays full. Here you can see fuel coming back from the engine, and here's fuel going through the engine. So here's the feed to the engine, and here's the return from the engine, and again, these fuel lines from and to the fuel tank are plugged up. Okay, I used up almost the whole bottle, but I did leave a little bit in the jar because I didn't want to run this dry, and because I wanted to save a little bit of diesel purge for refilling the fuel filter can, which I'm about to do next. Now, all the return line fuel is pretty clean, no visible chunks, good color. So it did clean the fuel injectors, although they weren't terribly dirty. So thanks for watching. Installation is the reverser removal.